guys, Kelly here, and I'm back with another recent reads. I know it was just a few days ago that I posted my last recent reads, but I wanted to do all my Spookathon books all in one, and I had one or two that I was still finishing. So I did that last one, and then all of these were books that were from my Spookathon TBR. And Spookathon was a readathon hosted by Books and Lala. I think it was from like October 14th to 21st, something around there. But I don't usually, I'm not able to always read everything I want to for a readathon in the like time limit. So in my head I was just like, oh, I'll just make sure that I finish them before the end of October, because they were all like October-y kind of reads. So that's what I did. It's not the end of October yet, and I did finish, I did, let's see, 6 books, and you'll see that that's not as exciting as it turned out to be, because 4 are graphic novels. So 2 novels and 4 graphic novels for my Spookathon readathon. And I had 2 other books on my TBR and I just didn't get to them. I'll still probably like keep them on my TBR for the next couple months, maybe get them before the end of the year, but they just didn't happen in October. So I'm actually going to start this time with my favorite book and go from there, because I just want to talk about it. And so my favorite book for the Spookathon was If We Were Villains by ML Rio. And I apologize if I sound like I have a little throat thing. Everybody in my family has a cold, so I'm a little stuffy and throaty, so probably sounds like that. And I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I really loved it a lot more than I kind of expected to. The basic plot of this is, it's kind of a thriller, and it is about a group of 7 students that go to an arts academy. So they're college students, but they're in a very like elite arts academy. And the 7 students we follow are all 4 years, so they're in their final year of this academy, and they're all theater students that study only Shakespeare. So like all of the theater program is just Shakespeare. And so what happens is we begin the book with our narrator, Oliver, who he's in jail. It's actually present time, and he is getting out of jail after being in there for 10 years, and he is about to tell the story of what happened that lands him in jail present day. So we're actually getting the events of something that happened 10 years ago while these students were in their 4th year. And so this is all told from Oliver's point of view. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because I wouldn't want to tell you what the event is, since that's kind of not revealed for a while. We kind of build up learning about these 7 students and their relationship with each other and how the school works and all that, before we even get to this big event. And then the rest of the book is kind of like the aftermath of that event and how we get to where the prologue is. And I really enjoy this. I thought, when I first hear a lot of people talk about it, I was kind of worried it would be a little pretentious and that I wasn't going to enjoy it, because a lot of people compare this to The Secret History, which I haven't read, so I can't like say that that's pretentious, but I've also heard a lot of people say that too, so that's why I kind of like need a snap judgment about this. But when I picked it up, it was really engrossing right away. Like, I really felt pulled into the story quickly. I really enjoyed each of the characters, because even though there's 7 of them, which seems like a lot, we get to see each of their distinct personalities, and that's kind of part of the point, is that they all have, through this time that they've been at school together, they've always been kind of pigeonholed into a certain style in their acting roles. So one is always the villain, one is the like king, and one is the sidekick and the ingenue and all that stuff. So they all have kind of their roles, and as this final year happens, things start to change and the dynamics in their groups change. And so what I really liked about this wasn't even like necessarily the thriller part of like solving the mystery. It was more the like, it was a character study to me of being in a very small community that is separate from the rest of society. So if like, this is really about how this academy, like, you are on this small scale of living kind of in the middle of nowhere, away from the rest of society. They are very much just absorbed in Shakespeare and this competition with each other to get the roles they want and the way they interact with each other, that I really enjoyed that part of it. It felt like we're just getting to see what that kind of society creates, like that close-knit society of an artsy, it's hard to say, I don't know if I'm making sense here, that like when you belong to such a small group separate from everybody else, you start to take on a groupthink. That's what I'm thinking. That this was kind of like what happens when your morals and your ethics start to get pulled into this groupthink. So they have been separate from the rest of society, and like they start creating their own set of ethics, and we're following how that affects them as people and in their group. And that's what I found fascinating, was this group think and how that takes over your life, and how you can like think that something is okay when us reading it are like, that is not okay. Like what you're doing is not right. But when you are absorbed into this like small little community, you create your own set of ethics, and what might not seem right to the general population, you can, like, in this groupthink scenario, justify it. And so that's what I found fascinating about this, was that study of how that groupthink happens. And the only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was I did think at the beginning that there were some choices that people could have made that would have kind of like dissolved the whole rest of the story, and like it kind of didn't make sense that it went so off the rails. But I think that the purpose that the author was trying to get to was this like whole new set of ethics, so I think that's why she just kind of had to make it happen that way in order to get to the rest of the story. So I didn't mark off too much for it, because I do think that it's a fascinating story in total, even though there were kind of ridiculous things at the beginning that kind of led to that. So I would recommend this. I read it really quickly. It was absorbing. The only thing is there's a lot of Shakespeare in here, like whole chunks. I don't know if I can pick one out, but like there are times when they talk in Shakespeare language and just doing quotes, and they're like weaving them into their regular talking with each other. And there are whole scenes in this book where they are going through how they're acting out one of the like plays, and so you're actually like almost seeing the stage production in the book written out. So if you're not like someone that likes Shakespeare, you might not enjoy this, because it does have a lot of Shakespeare in it. And I liked that as somebody that does like community theater, and I like Shakespeare plays. I found that interesting. So it added to it for me, but some people would find that annoying, I think, to have a lot of Shakespeare in it. So I'm sorry, I babbled a lot about that because I really did enjoy it. So I'll try to go these other ones kind of quickly. The next one I read for Spookathon was A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. This is the first in a trilogy, and this is kind of a paranormal or supernatural gothic story. So it takes place in kind of like the Victorian age, I believe. Like it's in 1895 that it is taking place, and it's about this girl Gemma Doyle who ends up at this like small like finishing school in England, and she develops new friendships and finds out that she has some like powers. They just kind of start appearing as she's 16, and her friends kind of explore those powers. So there's a lot of focus on the supernatural powers that she has learned she has connections to. And I gave this 3 stars. I thought it's the kind of 3 stars that was like it's a fun, entertaining read. I didn't get bored during this. I enjoyed it, especially the second half was really fast paced. I had a good time with it, but I probably would forget about it in a few months, and I don't even know if I would continue on to the next one. I just found it like just a fun read. Kind of like if, I don't know, to me it was similar to kind of like a Twilight read or something like that, where it's like fun and interesting while you're reading it, but doesn't really stick with you forever. Though I do think her writing is good, and I could see where her writing could develop over time and get to where Diviners, you know, her series, The Diviners, is like so huge. I could see how that happens. Like her writing in here, there were times that were really beautiful and great. I just thought this story really didn't like connect to me personally. I think if I had read this in high school, maybe it would have, because it does have a lot of like the high school tropes. Even though it's in the Victorian age, it's kind of interesting how it's kind of like Mean Girls set in the Victorian age. So maybe I would have liked it better if I was at the target audience, but I did find it entertaining, and I do recommend it if you just want to kind of fluff, entertaining read. I just don't know how much I'm invested to read the entire series. And the thing that also annoyed me was this friend group. They are really mean to each other and all that. And a lot of people I read in their review said that that's something that they really hated about the book. And for me, it did kind of like annoy me sometimes, their interactions. But I think it was important to the plot. And that when you get farther in the book, you realize that if they were all like a happy, great family of friends, that the plot would fall apart. That like you need kind of some of that mean girl interaction for it to make sense throughout the whole story. You know what I mean? So I think it actually was important to the plot. So it didn't bug me as much when I got later on and realized, yeah, that was a specific choice Libba Bray made to make them mean girls. And then the reason I'm saying that it wasn't that many books is I read 4 books in the Amulet series. It's a graphic novel. I read volumes 2 through 5. And these are, let me just show you one. These are like middle grade, so they're really short, has some nice drawings and things like that, and I do enjoy these, but I don't ever rate them on Goodreads because they're so short. I have a hard time rating them as like individual volumes, but I like reading them all together. So I read the first one like a couple months ago, and I just couldn't like judge it because it was just one really short. I mean, it takes me like maybe a half hour to read this, so it's really short. So I ended up just getting all the next 4 from the library and reading them pretty much back to back. I read 2 one day and then 2 another day. And there's 3 more out in the series, so I'm probably just going to get those 3 from the library in the next week and just finish off what is out. I think he might be writing 1 more. And so I find them fun. If you have a child who is like probably 10 and above, this is, I think, a nice one for it because the 2 main characters are kids, and they're really strong kids. And the main character, they're siblings, but the main one is the girl. And so I love that it is like a strong female main character that's a young girl, and that she goes through struggles of whether she is leaning towards the good side or the bad side. There's a lot of gray area in her choices, which I love, that it's a girl that's doing that. And then her brother is also a strong kid, like he's a pilot, so he gets to have like a good like role in the story, but he is not the main one. She's like the main like kind of chosen one type of thing. And so I'm not gonna tell you any more about the plot since they are sequels, but I would recommend it if you have a kid that age, or if you're someone who just likes to read middle grade stories and wants something really quick. I would highly suggest getting several of them at a time though, because they do read really fast if you are an adult. And okay, I'm going to stop talking because I realize I talked so much about one book that it has been a long video. So those are all my Spookathon books that I ended up reading. I think I did pretty successfully, even though I kind of extended my Spookathon like an extra week, but who cares? I would prefer a 2-week readathon anyways, because it just is more conducive to my schedule. So those are my fun, like, kind of October reads, and if you've read any of them, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to discuss them, and I will see you all later. It is almost Halloween, so happy Halloween! Bye!